it is staggering incompetence. It certainly doesn't leave me with a great sense of confidence in how Elections Canada is handling complaints about potential violations, potential serious violations.
He doesn't know! Oh, he's terrible! I was making it up as he goes along. Here we go, folks. Without further ado, Standing Committee on Procedure and House Affairs with the return of the Chief Electoral Officer.
Mr. Cooper, for 6 minutes, please.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner, for returning to committee once again. I want to pick up where you just left off in your testimony because I had received a copy of a complaint that had been sent to Elections Canada from Ryan Davies, who appeared before this committee and brought that complaint to this committee's attention. Were you aware of that complaint?
I was not aware of that complaint at the time that I testified before the committee. Of course, I am now aware of the complaint.
Okay. Now, the complaint states, among other things, that there were potential violations of the Canada Elections Act by the longest ballot committee. The complaint includes various pieces of correspondence, as well as a photo of an organizer who was collecting, or appears to be collecting, signatures in which the candidate's name is blank. In other words, if that is accurate, if the picture is fully accurate, but it certainly appears that the candidate's name was blank, that electors were signing a nomination paper for a candidate that would be then filled in after the fact, which would not be consistent with the Canada Elections Act. So what was the status of the complaint? What happened to that complaint? Do you know?
So all complaints, after an election, we receive thousands of complaints, and whenever they allege a violation of the act, we don't scrutinize to determine whether there's adequate evidence or whether there's actually an offense under the act. We typically transfer that, as a matter of course, to the Commissioner of Canada Elections. So, and she has the mandate to investigate violations of the act, contraventions of the act.
Mr. Perot, we didn't submit our complaint after the election.
No, it was done on July the 25th, unless he's talking about after the general election back in April, and they're still sifting through all these thousands of complaints. But one would hope they're a little bit faster than that.
One would hope.
But yes, it was sent on July the 25th, which was before the by-election of Battle River Crowfoot.
It was
which
almost
occurred on
3 weeks
August
before.
18th?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I think it was, something like that. It was almost 3 weeks before. So, just saying. Just saying.
In the case, and I appreciate that, in the case of Mr. Davies' complaint, was that forwarded to the Commissioner of Elections Canada?
So that's an interesting question. She is seized of the information in the complaint. The complaint itself, as I learned after the testimony and asked to search for that complaint, the complaint itself was caught in our security filters because of possible contamination of the links. And so other people who saw the evidence put forward, or the videos put forward by Mr. Davies, did make complaints, and the Commissioner...
So just to be, so I'm fully clear, the complaint essentially, Mr. Davies' complaint, went into a black hole. Insofar as it was sent to your office, to Elections Canada, and because of whatever issue, it sort of went into a black hole, is effectively what it sounds like to me happened.
I would not, Mr. Chair, describe it in that manner.
Well, I guess with the greatest respect, and I understand these things sometimes happen, but there was a complaint. It sounds to me like no one looked at it. Is that accurate, or did someone look at it?
So
When did anyone in Elections Canada first look at it?
So the complaint was received, and other complaints preferencing the videos made public by Mr. Davies were received. The commissioner was seized of that information and the allegations, but if you're asking, the physical complaint itself was not transferred, but she is seized of the matter.
So by being seized of the matter, what do you mean by being seized of the matter?
She understands the allegations.
When did she first understand the allegations that were set out in the complaint? Was it after Mr. Davies appeared before committee?
No, first of all, Mr. Chair, I cannot speak for the commissioner. What I can say is her office was seized of the issue at the time that, in short time after. We're talking about July, if I'm not mistaken, after the election. And as a matter of course, these issues are forwarded to the commissioner's office.
Ladies and gentlemen,
It's interesting that this happens to our email, you being the IT guy. So what do you suspect happened? Because the weird thing is, we have our own domain, right? northernperspective.ca, and our email is info@northernperspective.ca. So that's where the email was sent from. We can correspond with MPs, no problem, and their staff. So we can correspond with parliamentary emails, no problem. Why was there an issue with Elections Canada? Now, maybe it was some of the attachments that were included.
So...
But it just seems odd.
Well, what... Okay. Where it was, no doubt, if it was caught, would have been their spam filter. So he's trying to say that our email got caught up in the spam filter of their email system. That's what he's trying to say. Now, he's saying, well, probably because of all the links that was in there.
Maybe.
All the links... By all the links, Mr. Perot, do you mean one? There's one link in here.
Right
and it's
at the
very bottom.
For your reference, here's a link to our video with regard to these concerns. It could have been the attachments. Maybe that's what he meant by links.
I don't know. But this is not a novel long email. This is a pretty concise email. There's some detailed information in it. It's not like, hi, I'm from Nigeria and my brother just died and I
need to
send you $10 million. That's not what this was. And the attachments, they weren't zip files or anything like that. They were .msg files. They're Outlook files. So it's very peculiar that this would have been caught in their spam filter. And if so, guys, who's running your IT department? Because obviously the restrictions on your spam filter are far too tight. And the other question is guys, who's checking your spam filter? Because when I worked at government, my email guys, what they would do is they would say basically every month, hey Ryan, there's some stuff that was caught in the spam filter and looks like it's addressed to you, looks legitimate. You want to take a look at it so we know whether to release it or not. And then I would say, yeah, this is good, or this is garbage. And then it would be released and then it would show up in my inbox. All good.
Well, and Cooper asks that question, what's your process? So
well, we get to that.
Continue.
Don't spoil that.
Oh, sorry.
But it's interesting. Everybody else's complaint makes it through. And the other thing that I was zeroing in on here is he says, well, we've received other complaints and the commissioner is seized. He says seized like 50 times. Okay, 10 times maybe. We want to be accurate on Northern Perspective, even though we're a fringe right-wing crazy YouTube channel. But we'll at least be an accurate crazy right-wing fringe YouTube channel. And he says that they were seized with the information in the complaint. I'm probably not. Just saying. Probably not. because I don't think everybody else that was sending in these emails actually had the correspondence between the longest ballot and a whistleblower in the longest ballot. So just going out on a limb probably doesn't have that information.
Receives, just to be clear, from the public
Okay.
and Elections Canada, around 18,000 complaints, 2,000 of which are close to were forwarded by Elections Canada. And as part of that, and there was no significant delay, her office was seized of the information that Mr.
Can you undertake to provide the committee with the chronology of what happened with that complaint, when it was identified, and when it was transferred, or when the commissioner became seized of that complaint? Because it sounds to me like something went wrong with the complaint in terms of what happened on the part of Elections Canada. You would agree? I mean,
I
surely-
certainly agree that something unusual happened with the complaint, in the sense that there are security parameters around our systems, and if there is concern around the links or documents, they are quarantined. But in this case, the information was also pointed to by other complainants, and they were transferred. And I can commit to share with the committee the time in which these were transferred to the commissioner. I can't speak beyond that. What happens in the commissioner's office, of course, is not for me to speak to.
A thought just occurred to me.
What's that?
So he said they'd received, let's just say lots, a whole heap full of complaints about this. And that would have happened because, and we know, because people were emailing us that they'd contacted us, Elections Canada, around the July 25th and subsequently. So that means people were also sending that link to our July 25th longest ballot video, where that was the whistleblower one. Then Mr. Perot goes on committee a couple weeks ago and says, I'm not aware of the evidence.
Didn't he say that there was nothing credible?
No, he said I'm not aware of any evidence to that.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's possible he didn't watch the video and didn't realize that the evidence was in the video. I mean, he's the CEO of Elections Canada. He's not going to be like watching every random YouTube channel or
No,
YouTube video
I don't
that
expect
people-
him to. I expect staff to, and then bring it to his attention. That's what I expect. Otherwise, how would they know to even forward it on to the election commissioner?
Fair, but it was also a 45-minute video, so you can't be paying staff to watch a 45-minute video every time something like that comes in.
If they're not going to pay staff to deal with complaints, and if you have, I don't know, I'm just saying it's...
Well, what is it now, October? And we sent that email in July?
Right.
Somebody should have been checking that spam folder sooner than October.
Well, yeah, it's been
That's,
2.5 months.
I think, the real issue here.
So no one bothered to try and track down this complaint until my testimony. Good job, guys.
I want to follow up on the complaint of Mr. Davies. It certainly is not satisfactory that a legitimate, serious complaint went into, you don't agree with my characterization of a black hole, but I don't know what else it could be called other than a black hole when it goes into a security filter system and then isn't checked upon. And it really begs the question, how many other complaints raising issues of potential violations of the Canada Elections Act and so on go into Elections Canada's security filter and are not acted upon?
Mr. Chair, I think that's a legitimate question. It's certainly one that I've asked my team, and I think we need to look into that. We need to make sure both that there is security, but that there are means to making sure that if there are serious allegations of wrongdoing, that this not be lost through the security protection. So it's a balance.
As Cooper was going through this, it was amazing because the questions that I was like, well, here's my next question. Cooper then asked the question. So the amazing thing is Cooper seems to be really in tune with what all of us are thinking as we're watching this. So if you're coming up with a question as the chief electoral officer is actually going through his answer, don't worry, it's most likely going to be answered. And when he was asking him about this black hole and, you know, how many other Elections Canada complaints are in there. All of a sudden, the scene of Life of Brian flashed into my head when he was trying to tell the story from the pulpit about, you know, there's these there's these three people, and they're like, what are their names? And he's like, you know, I don't know. And then he's like, you don't know? So when he says, well, you know, I've asked my team. Basically, I don't know if there's any other complaints that have been caught in the spam filter. I'm just thinking, you don't know. He doesn't know. And it just jumped in my head. So now it's in your head. So you're welcome. Off we go.
Respectfully, I do find it a little bit astounding. With the greatest of respect, I understand that there are security filters, but does Elections Canada not have processes in place to monitor those security filters, to check if emails that shouldn't have gone into them are then reviewed and forwarded on to the commissioner or acted upon as they should be, as opposed to sitting in a security filter?
So again, I've asked my team to examine that very
No, but I've
question.
asked you, are there processes in place?
I've asked to see what are the processes and what they can be done to be improved.
You don't know that there are processes in place about Elections Canada security filters with respect to complaints that are sent to info@elections.ca.
This is the first time that the situation has been brought to my attention, and I
No,
realize...
but it doesn't sound like it is necessarily an isolated case. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that when you have a security filter, that emails sometimes go into security filters that aren't junk mail, and so it just seems to me to be unacceptable that there are no processes in place, because you can't point to any. I mean, it should be pretty straightforward, shouldn't it be?
Again, I've asked that this be examined and that I be briefed on the matter, and I'd be happy to report back on the issue when I next appear.
Well, maybe you could answer how many other complaints have gone into that black hole.
So, I'm not aware of any, but that is something that needs to be examined. I do not disagree with you. It needs to be examined. In this case, as I've indicated, there are two other aspects, but it does not negate the legitimacy and the relevance of your question. In this case, the information, the Commissioner's office has been seized of the information.
It sounds to me like it is staggering incompetence. It sounds to me like there is a complete lack of oversight in place to ensure that complaints are acted upon, and I can say it certainly doesn't leave me with a great sense of confidence in how Elections Canada is handling complaints about potential violations, potential serious violations of the Canada Elections Act, complaints that raise issues that go to the integrity of our elections and how they are being handled.
Mr. Chair, with all due respect, I think it's premature to draw those conclusions, but
Well,
it is not. But if I may
premature.
answer, I would like to answer, please. It is not premature to examine the issue internally, to see what needs to be done, and to do it to make sure that serious complaints are not ignored. As I said, in this case, the subject matter was brought to the attention of the Commissioner, and perhaps it was determined that it was sufficient to do that. I won't.
Thank you.
Right? And as I said, in this particular case, allegations of a blank signature, if I could, of a non-candidate's being identified is not an offense, and that needs to be addressed.
Thank you so much, Mr.
He doesn't know. Oh, he's terrible. I was making it up as he goes along. See, it all applies. If you just replay that skit, it all applies.
Well, and you see like lawyer Cooper come out, right? Like he's just not taking no for an answer.
Even the chair was like, Mr. Cooper, and he's like, oh, all right. Okay.
Well, because again, this is serious, and we had contacted Elections Canada prior to the by-election date. It was while the writ had been dropped, but it was prior to the by-election itself. and it just languished. Now, I don't recall whether or not we had followed up with them by phone. I think we may have, but I don't want to say for certain because I don't really recall.
Yeah, Coop hearing those answers, just like,
What the hell is going on?
That's right. Because again, this is serious. This is our democracy, right?
Well,
we do not mess around with our democracy or our elections.
and I love it. Cooper was like, ooh, something doesn't seem right here. Do you have a process for checking that? Well, I'll check with my team. You don't know if you have a process for checking that? You're the chief electoral officer, and the part of the job of this team in Elections Canada is to receive complaints and then forward them on.
Well, and then, I mean, the fact that our email got stuck in this black hole, it raises the question, has this happened in the past? Will it happen in the future?
And the answer is, I don't know.
We don't know.
So, are you trying to tell me that I have the humbling honor of being the very first email that has been caught in your spam filter?
I think that they maybe, and again, we don't know, but maybe they haven't had one that was of a serious nature like this caught in the spam filter before. Maybe that's the argument to be made. I don't know. But I guess the next thing is, what are you going to do about it?
Well, here's the thing. It was sitting there, obviously, for
2.5 months?
all of September, all of August. So yeah,
No.
it would have been 2.5 months.
Yeah.
Imagine the underwear change the CEO of Elections Canada did when he was watching committee and saw that they received this serious complaint on July 25th that he hadn't heard about before. He's like, oh, crap.
Well, and the most important question is, how are you going to prevent that from happening again? I mean, and I suppose what triggered it? Was it the attachments? Was it the link? Was it the email address that it was coming from? Their IT team needs to figure that out so it doesn't happen again in the future.
Well, but here's the thing. Like, when you implement a spam filter, if your people are doing their job and their department is doing their job, it needs to be checked. Because you can't have a scenario in a private organization. You can't have a scenario where a multi-million-dollar contract comes in and it gets caught in the spam. They say, oh, sorry, it was just caught in our spam filter.
That's a really good point. I mean, what if Elections Canada is trying to secure locations for an election or a by-election, for example, and the contract gets stuck in the spam filter? Like, that's a bad situation.
Yeah, don't you check it?